Hey everybody, I am Scott Sand, the original Tombstone tourist, and we are back in Wilmington, North Carolina, and a return visit to Oakdale Cemetery. This is a beautiful historic cemetery, and if you remember, we came here for David Brinkley, we came here for the girl in the barrel, and we were here to photograph this lovely young lady. Her name is Mary Lily Kenan Flagler Bingham. That's a lot to remember. Now, who is Mary? Well, the reason we waited so long to do this video was after I photographed her and saw the story behind her. This is the saddest, most tragic story that I have ever done, and I want to share it with you because it's not really well known. So, Mary, that's her father right there, Mr. Kenan. They were a very well-to-do family. Now, she met Mr. Bingham, Robert Bingham, while she was in college, and they had an illicit affair. Illicit meaning, yes, they did that. And she contracted syphilis during her affair with Robert Bingham. He was a bit of a gigolo, a bit of a playboy. She had a brief affair with him, and then she broke it off, and the family took her at age 23 to summer in Newport, Rhode Island, like all of us rich people do. And they spent the summer there, and she met Mr. Henry Flagler. Now, who is Henry Flagler? Well, you've all heard of John Rockefeller, founder of Standard Oil, one of the richest men in the world. You probably didn't realize he had an equal partner in Mr. Flagler. Now, Henry was enormously wealthy, and he was responsible for building up the Atlantic coast of Florida. He built railroads down there, and he filled in some of the swamp areas, but he founded the cities of Palm Beach and Miami, and he's buried in St. Augustine. He is the man. So when you go down to Florida, you're going to see a lot of Flagler this and Henry Flagler that. So a lot of people didn't realize that John Rockefeller had a partner. That's how wealthy Mr. Flagler was. Now, they met in Newport, Rhode Island. Two problems. She was 23, he was 61. Do the math. Number two, he was married to Ida Alice. So what he decided was he had Ida Alice declared mentally incompetent and pushed her into an insane asylum where she died years, decades later. And 2 months later, he married Mary. By the way, that's another story for another time, Ida Alice. So after he had Ida Alice declared mentally incompetent and put her away in an insane asylum, 2 months later, he married Mary. Now, you might think it was for the money and all that, but they actually had a wonderful marriage for 12 years. Now, Mr. Kenan and family were a little not really happy with this arrangement, but don't worry, Henry Flagler gifted her $2 million in Standard Oil stock and jewelry. And that's not $2 million in today's money, that's $2 million money in the 1900s. They lived for 12 years in what's known as Whitehall. Whitehall is still there. I believe it's in Palm Beach. You can tour it. It's all the original furniture. You should do it. Now, so they got married. They were married for 12 years, and one day Henry fell down the marble steps of the mansion, and he died 2 months later. What does that leave Mary? With $100 million, the equivalent of $2.51 billion today, making her the richest woman in the world. Now, Mr. Bingham, Robert Bingham, what did he do? He was kind of a worthless playboy. He squandered his money, as well as badly invested his family money. They were very angry at him. And his accountant said, "Hey, Robert, you should go look up your old girlfriend and get some money, and we can rebuild your wallet there." And that's what he did. He went and courted Mary and whisked her off to Louisville, Kentucky, and that's where he kept her, and she died 8 months later. You Want to know how she died 8 months later? Let me tell you. So, when they got married, when Mary and Robert Bingham got married, she was healthy as all get out. She was lively, happy, everything. He whisked her off to his, mansion. Not really much of a mansion, but, it is what it is. To Louisville, Kentucky. She didn't have any friends there. She knew nobody, and he kept her prisoner in that house. Then his friend, Dr. Rapvik, started administering morphine to her until she was hooked on the dope. And they were doing that to incapacitate her so she would change the will, because Robert Bingham signed away all his rights to any inheritance, and he needed her money. So finally she relented because she was so doped up that he got $5 million on her death. Old money, $5 million back in those days was a lot of money. When she died, the first autopsy indicated that she had lethal doses of morphine, a drug for syphilis, she had arsenic in her, she had antihistamines, and she had another mercury. That's not what you would find in a healthy person. She was basically held prisoner at that mansion until she died 8 months later, and that's what the first autopsy found. But the family, the Kenan family, took Robert to court, and in the meantime, right down this road that you saw in front of us, at midnight, came a group of cars that disinterred her, took the coffin away, and did a second autopsy. After that autopsy was completed, 2 days later, all lawsuits were dropped. They let him keep the $5 million, and the Kenan family inherited the remainder, $95 million, and they did good things with that money. Chapel Hill got a bunch of money, the University of Chapel Hill and other places. Now, what Robert Bingham did with his blood money is he bought the leading newspaper in Louisville, Kentucky, built a giant fortune out of that. They were very well known. It is my understanding that that fortune today is gone. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe that it's blood money, then listen to his own family, because they've written books about they're completely embarrassed that what they did to that poor woman. Now you're probably wondering, why did they drop the lawsuit? And what happened to the results of that second autopsy? The results of that second autopsy have never been released. They are sealed and with the family today. Nobody has ever said what it was. But what everybody suspects, she had syphilis and was also dying from that. In fact, Robert, I believe 5-6 years later, died from syphilis also. And they didn't want that embarrassment out in the press. So they're figuring, hey, 5 million versus our 95 million, we'll go with it. But if you want to visit her, there's 2 ways. Come to my website. I've got exact directions. It's very easy to find. I also have videos and all the great stories. I mean, this story goes on, and it has so many angles. I just gave you a very, very brief summary of it. And you're going to see interviews and tour of Whitehall. It's just gorgeous. So come to my website, The Original Tombstone Tourist. Love to see you there. My name is Scott Stanton. Thank you very much. My job here is done.